guys, I am back for Tuesday's lesson of language, and today we're going to be looking at what we've written yesterday, and we wrote 2 paragraphs together. You're doing 2 paragraphs on your own, and we're going to look at it and we're going to revise, which means we are going to go back and we're going to say, okay, what could be changed, what needs fixed, what sounds good, what doesn't sound good, and we're going to kind of just shore up our writing today. And we're also going to be writing our introduction and our conclusion. So let's get started. Let me turn my iPad on here for a minute. And let's get started. Sorry, it's taking a little while. I think I say that every single day. My computer has a little bit of a mind of its own. There we go. Okay, so if you don't have it open already, open to page 223. We're going to see what Spencer did from our book, and then we're going to kind of emulate what Spencer did today. So in case you missed that, that's page 222, 223. Let's look at the top. It says, after Spencer had drafted his report, he talked it over with his classmate, James. James thought that Spencer's report was interesting. He liked the details Spencer gave about Wesley's salvation experience. He gave Spencer some suggestions to make the report even better. Here are the last 3 paragraphs of Spencer's report with the revisions marked on them. So, right here where it says, Charles became a minister in England. He visited in prisons. He held open-air meetings. He said, hey, we should probably combine these 2 and put a comma or put a conjunction in there, right? And combine those 2 sentences. So he would say he visited in prisons and held open air meetings. That sounds good. Let's look at this next one. It says he. Now, it says he, and it talks about John, and then it talks about Charles Wesley. So we don't know who the he is. So he fixed it and said Charles. Also, here they added a comma conjunction. And one of the first sentences, it says, Spencer made his topic sentence more interesting. It started as Charles started writing hymns right after he was saved. And he changed it to, one of the first things Charles did after he was saved were to write a hymn. Okay, so that's a little bit more interesting than Charles started writing hymns. It's not always the more words, the better. It's just the way the words flow, it sounds better, and it makes your reader want to read your paper. Let's move down. He says, he took out a sentence that gave his opinion. Oh, for a thousand tongues to sing is my favorite. And remember, this is not an opinion piece. So I know yesterday some of our things had opinions on there, so we're going to have to take them out. Spencer made the last paragraph clearer by changing the second sentence to make this better sense with the first one. So we have Charles Wesley wished he had 1,000 tongues to sing the praise of Jesus. Although he had only 1 tongue, he gave us thousands of hymns to use in worship. So that sounded really good. Remember, conclusion, couple sentences, that's it, okay? So this is what I want you to do. We don't have classmates with us. So what I would like you to do is maybe ask an older brother or an older sister or your mom or your dad or your aunt or whomever you're with right now. I would like you to ask them to look at this paper for you. Ask them their opinions. Now, don't get upset or angry if they do have opinions on what to change, because ultimately it is your paper, but I want a second eye on it. You know how in class when we trade with one another and we do peer revisions? Well, we're going to have our family members as our peers this time. So get with them, ask them to help you revise this. If there's nothing, that's okay. If you cannot find someone, then you be your reviser. But I want you to look at it with fresh eyes. So read it out loud. If you read it out loud, you're like, oh my goodness, I missed a conjunction, or I missed a subject, or I missed a predicate, right? Make sure that you're reading it. If you can't find anyone else to help you revise this paper, if you need to, you can always ask me and I can help you revise, but I want you to try someone in your family first, okay? So let's look here. Use a different color when you're revising. I like to use purple. For some reason, this, for Spencer's friend James, he used blue. I don't necessarily like to use red, but if you prefer red, go ahead, go for it, okay? Let's look at page 223. Now, this is what our assignment is. What changes need to be made in your research report? Spencer made some changes. Spencer made some changes to have variety in the length of his sentences. You don't want short, choppy. He did this, he did this, he did this, right? It gets boring. We want to add some livelihood to our research report. Too many short sentences will make the report seem choppy. Too many long sentences will make it seem wordy and hard to read, like we're not writing an academic thesis, right? We're writing a research report on Isaac Newton. Do you have several short sentences in a row? If so, can you combine any of them to make them compound sentences? Remember to use a comma and a conjunction when you combine sentences into a compound sentence. Sometimes you can also combine two short sentences into one sentence with a compound subject or a compound predicate. Maybe you have too many long sentences. Could you divide them into two sentences? Make sure that your new sentences each express a complete thought. My goal, guys, by the end of 5th grade, and it's been my goal since the beginning, is to get you to write paragraphs using sentences with complete thoughts. Does it have a subject? Does it have a predicate? Does it have words that make the sentence more interesting? Even with your Trouble at Silver Pines Inn, those summaries I'm having you write, those are helping you to write a more detailed, a better written paragraph. So let's go ahead and let's look. It says revise your research report. If you need to add more details, take time to look through your note cards and read your outline again, or look over your articles that I've given you. They're still on Google Classroom, so you can go back and look at them. Use proofreading marks to indicate your revisions. So you guys are going to revise today, or you're going to ask your parents to help you, or your siblings, or whomever's in your house. So let's look at our revising checklist. So sorry, I talked too long. My iPad turned off. Let's look at the revising checklist. It says, my research report has an introduction that leads to the report. We're doing that today. Each of my main paragraphs covers one point in my outline. Well, the ones we wrote yesterday did, so hopefully the ones you wrote do as well. The sentences in each paragraph tell about the main point. My report gives just enough detail about each main point and not too much and not too little. I use sentences of various lengths in my report. I did not include any of my opinions about my topic in my report. So we can't say, I think Isaac Newton's the greatest person ever. That's awesome. I hope you do. But we can't give that opinion in a research report. And my report has a conclusion that sums up the report. We're going to go over that today too. So we can cross 2 things off on our list. So this is what we're going to do. We have our introduction today. And I would like to look, let me see here, because I have on my computer, hopefully let me pull it up. I have a quote that Reese Madden actually helped us get. And I really like this quote. So I want to use this quote somewhere in our research report. It says, in the absence of any other proof, the thumb would only convince me of God's existence. And Isaac Newton said that. So it's kind of a, what do you think that means? In the absence of any other proof, if there was no other proof, this guy right here, our thumb, would convince him of God's existence. We have something, a thumb, that's opposable, that would help us to grip things, right? And so Isaac Newton's like, hey, whoa, if nothing else, I'm going to believe in God just because of this cool thumb that we have. That's pretty awesome, right? That's amazing. So I want to use this quote in our introduction. So this is, you could either say the quote and then say Isaac Newton, but with this quote, I kind of would like to go about it like this. Now, if you want to reword this, you are 100% able to do that. Go ahead, okay? This is, what I'm showing you is a kind of like an outline of what you can have. You can change the words, you can change the construction of it. I'm 100% okay with that, okay? But I'm going to say this. Indent, Isaac Newton once said, and then we put a comma, opening quotations, and we're going to capital, in the absence of any other proof, the thumb would only convince me of God's existence. Period, closing quotations. Okay, so when we write a paper, any paper you're going to write, you want a hook. You want something that's going to grab the reader's attention. And in this case, that does grab the reader's attention. It says, in the absence of any other proof, the thumb would only convince me of God's existence. When I heard that quote, I was like, wow, that's amazing, right? I never even thought about that. I didn't even think that, oh, just a thumb would convince me of God, right? I see a flower, I see succulents. I think I told you guys this. I see, and I know that there's a God because of the amazing detail that are in things. And there's amazing detail just in our little thumb that we have, okay? So let's keep going. In an outline, if we look back, and I'm not going to put it on the screen, but if you look back at his paper, did we have one? Yes. If you look back on page 215, it says, and you guys can look in your book because you should have them in front of you. Spencer, the person who's writing about Charles Wesley, his opening paragraph is this. If you have ever sung the hymn in Can It Be, you were singing the words of Charles Wesley. This great preacher and poet was amazed by the love of God, and he used his voice and his pen to tell others about that love. Well, we have Isaac Newton once said, in the absence of any other proof, the thumb would only convince me of God's existence. We want to kind of throw in that Isaac Newton was a mathematician, that he was an inventor, and he discovered many things, but he ultimately knew of the Creator, right? The one Creator who created everything of our being. So we can say Newton not only found the existence of God through his complex mathematical discoveries, let's say mathematical and scientific. Guys, when I'm writing, I don't know about you, but I go back and read it halfway through. So we're not done with that sentence, but let's look. Newton not only found the existence of God through his complex mathematical and scientific discoveries, he also knew God existed in the small details of life. Okay, so then we're gonna talk about his discoveries, and he made big discoveries, but he knew that God was in those big discoveries, and he knew that God was in the little things too. God is omnipresent, right? He is everywhere all the time. He is in those discoveries. So God is so amazing. So introduction, that's the beginning of your research report. Now, if you want to add more detail, please add more detail. More sentences. That is completely up to you. Please make this your own, okay? So after our introduction, we have the two sentences that the 2 paragraphs that you did. Then we have the 2 paragraphs that we wrote together yesterday. And then we're going to have a conclusion. So don't think that it's only introduction, conclusion. I'm just going to write the conclusion down here. Conclusion. Now we want to go back to Spencer's paper and kind of see how Spencer concluded it. Spencer said, where's his conclusion? Although he had only one tongue, he gave us thousands of hymns to use in our worship. Okay. So we talked about Newton knowing who God was. We talked about his very many scientific and mathematical discoveries. How could we sum this up? Let's think. What do you guys think? How about if we said this? How about this? How about we say Isaac Newton's discoveries that is not how you spell discovery. Discoveries help. Okay. Isaac Newton's discoveries help one, and I'll tell you why I use the word one in a minute. Help one to see God not only in the big details of life, but also in the small details, or the small, I'm going to use details again and we'll fix it. Okay. Okay, so conclusion only has to be one sentence. You can do two. You can find another quote by Isaac Newton that kind of goes with our research report. That is 100% up to you, but I want to just show you what maybe I came up with. Isaac Newton's discoveries help one to see God not only in the big details of life, but also in the small details. Now, the reason why I use the word one is when you're writing a research report, it is 100% factual. It is not a report where you say I or me or we. You use words that don't point to you. This research report is not an opinion piece by you. It is just in fact that. It is a research paper. So this is what we have. We have an intro. Yesterday you did your 2 paragraphs that came before the accomplishments. We wrote the 2 accomplished paragraphs together, and then we have a conclusion. So what I want you to do today is this. You are going to revise. You don't have to rewrite anything, okay? You should have the intro and the conclusion written down, and you should, if you want to add to it, please do. It is 100% open for you adding to it. You are going to revise. Ask someone in your family to look at it. If you do not have someone to look at it, then contact me and I will look at it for you. But make sure you're looking for anytime a pronoun doesn't make sense. Make sure you're looking if we have a repetition of words, and I purposely put a repetition of words in some of the paragraphs that I wrote so that you can change them. Make sure you're looking for that. And then tomorrow we'll come back and we'll do proofreading. Now you don't have anything else to do except the revising tonight. So make sure that you're doing that, okay? We'll see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.